Okay, if everybody will take their places, we're beyond the appointed hour. I want to call the Peel Police Services Board public meeting for April 26, 2024 to order. Let me begin with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the land that which we gather and which the region of the Peel operates as part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous people inhabited and cared for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. I go through roll call. All members are present. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, Chief, over to you for your update, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Board. Once again, I want to thank the Board for their constant presence and support at some of the most recent announcements that you see some of our members here, and I think Deputy Andrews or Staff Superintendent Hiltz will introduce a few of them. But there's been a lot of moving parts in the region lately, as you know, that's gaining attention, of course. But thank you to the Board for being a part of all of them. And so with that, actually, I'm going to have Deputy Milinovich, and then I believe it's Staff Superintendent Hiltz, or it's Mark to speak.
Thank you, Chief, and through the Chair, good morning, Board. I'd like to provide some brief updates on a couple areas of operational interest, and I think I'll start with probably the one that drew the most attention, and that was the gold theft investigation from Pearson Airport. We dubbed it 24 Carat. It was the largest gold theft in Canada's history, and reportedly the 6th largest gold theft in world history. And, you know, we often say this, but we have some of the very best and most talented investigators in this country. Very confident of that. And I think the fact that we were able to solve this crime demonstrates that. We recovered over $400,000 worth of cash, some of the gold that had been stolen, but also drew a connection to plans to import a number of firearms into our community. So again, great investigation. Really appreciate the support of the Board in order to be able to deliver that with the resources that were required, and certainly the support at the presser. So I'll maybe answer any questions on that if there are any before I move on to the other updates.
I've got Mayor Brown first. Go ahead, please, Mayor Brown.
Thank you. Well, first of all, incredible work by the Peel Police. What a shining example for the country of the value of investing in policing, the incredible investigative work that you do. Everyone was just so proud of the Peel Police, and so that's the starting point. But my question is, you do this incredible work, absolutely extraordinary work, and then we see a photo a few days later of one of the members at a local gym. And it sort of speaks to some of the structural problems we haven't had in bail. We've talked a lot about bail reform for auto theft and property crimes. Anything you'd like to share with us in terms of, you know, how more stringent bail conditions would be helpful? Because I think what we're seeing with gold, there's probably similarities to what we're seeing with cars too, but they're both property crimes, and the difference in the treatment of a property crime in Canada and the U.S.
No, definitely. I appreciate that. It was interesting. One of the people that was arrested, as you mentioned, the next day is captured on video walking into a gym. And, you know, I would be lying if I said that we, you know, and I say we as in policing, are surprised by that. It's a reality of what's occurring. But it certainly was also a reminder of the importance of the work that we are doing in the space of pushing for bail reform or legislative changes to keep the right people in jail when they need to be. The reality is, in Peel, we arrest a lot of people with firearms who have previous criminal records. There's a small percentage of people that are responsible for our most violent crime, and they're allowed to commit it because they are often released on bail despite our attempts to try to keep them in custody. You know, the vast majority of special bail hearings that we have relating to people who are in possession of firearms or who have committed violent offenses result in them being released. And it's why the, identification of bail as an issue by the board and our service so long ago. We've been talking about this and have been pushing and advocating for changes is so very important. And it's not just about one specific offense. It's a gap that we're seeing in the system that has effects on a variety of different offenses. One of the updates I'm going to provide to you is on auto theft. There was a gentleman who we charged with 168 offenses in relation to auto theft, a revinning investigation. And then the next day, he's at a nightclub and posting on Instagram about it. And again, that's a property offense, but those same outrageous incidents occur in spaces where they shouldn't. And that's why it's so important that we continue to advocate for bail reform and making sure that we're keeping the right people in custody.
So on that note, I'm meeting with the Minister of Justice on the topic of bail on Monday. If there's any information that we could, if there's a letter from the chair of the board that we could share, just to explain this, to break this down, because they announced bail reform legislation last year, came into effect, I understand, January 1st. But clearly, if that individuals who committed the largest gold heist in Canadian history are out on bail at the gym a few days later, it doesn't go far enough. And so I'd love to be able to explain, and no one does a better explanation than the Peel leadership team of what is missing. I'd love to be able to explain what is missing, and maybe an official letter could be helpful. But I guess on that note, Chief, if this happened in the U.S., if the car is stolen in the U.S., the gold is stolen in the U.S., and it's a property crime, would they be in custody?
It'd be hard to comment on exactly what would happen in the U.S. context, but the dotted line extension to firearms trafficking puts it over the edge. As you know, the one individual arrested, that's part of the gold theft, but was in possession of the firearms, is facing a 35-year sentence in the U.S. and is still in custody. So, this is part of the problem. And just to be clear, we would be happy to provide you some, speaking points which you may utilize. As you know, right across the policing sector, and even I think our associations were very vocal about the loss of lives of officers in the last 2 years that were as a result of high-risk violent offenders that are released on conditions or on bail. What the reality of what we're talking about now is, there are other changes to systems that can occur that could mitigate things like auto theft, inclusive of new offenses. We've suggested new offenses that don't just look at it as a theft of an item over $5,000, that treat it like, we do with drug trafficking or the more complex, coordinated, organized drug trafficking offenses. So there are other solutions in the mix that, we have documented and provided. We'd be happy to get that in front of you again. It's not just about the high-risk violent offenders, but we see it all the time. The young people that are involved with the carjackings and thefts are, not even just young, but they're back out again, and our officers are the ones having to deal with them at the curbside. So be happy to help you with that.
Mr. Boughton, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, Deputy Milanovich, we had a chat about this last week, but I think for the good of the board and anybody who's watching, and perhaps my question is, I'm building my file for my budget presentation, and that will take place in these chambers 7 months from now. On the 24-carat investigation, and if I'm not looking for the exact numbers, how many Peel Police personnel were involved in this? How many thousands or tens of thousands of hours of investigative work went in to that press conference, which was exactly a year to the day from the theft, I understand. I mean, the cost of this investigation would have to be enormous, but I think it would be good for us to understand how much in terms of hours went into this on an investigation that's this long and this complex.
Absolutely, and appreciate that question. So a total of 17 investigators were attached and remain attached to this investigation. This is why I think it's, the incident occurs. There's so many secondary and tertiary costs outside of the human resourcing too. So you've got the salary of 17 investigators, inclusive of thousands of hours, ridiculous amount of, like, they lived this investigation for a year in order to bring it to the conclusion that it has. But then you've got other costs like vehicles, the technical aspects. All of these things have associated costs to them, and the investigation's not done. Yes, we've solved it, but it will continue. It then takes the form of the need to provide disclosure, to see it through successful prosecution. So that begins to give you an idea of the scope of just one investigation. A great investigation, but that's just one small piece of what's done here in Peel on a daily basis.
I wanted to, Mayor Brown, thank you for giving me that entree. Just briefly on that point, and maybe it helps you out on Monday. Much more to say on Project 24 Carat, but I've been at this a while, and I have a usual perspective on the world, as you know. And the 36 years that I've been around, dare I tell you that of anything I've ever done in 36 years, and all of the media it may have attracted in total, that press conference in Project 24, I got more in sum than 36 years. That's how far and wide it went. I get a call late one evening. Nando, I'm at Heathrow Airport. You're on the BBC, alongside the chief and Mayor Brown. Wow. Same individual was doing business in Belgium 2 days later. Nando, you're on Belgian TV. And you don't know when you're in the eye of the storm whether something is a small matter or a big matter, and you don't realize it until after. This was a big deal. Not just the hugest gold theft in Canadian history, but number 6, and we haven't had one in a while, so you don't realize the notoriety that it gets. All that to say the following. Following that notoriety, more people called me, reached out to me. Every single one of them said the same two things, almost equally in reverse order. Nando, you spoke really well. What the hell are all these people doing out on bail? Or, Nando, what the hell are all these people doing out on bail? Oh, and you spoke really well. That was it. Dare I say it, numbered in the hundreds? So, Patrick, there's something for you that you can say. We got a guy that's been around 36 years and equally in praising the police and the way it was handled. It was, what are all these people doing out on bail? I'm going to venture another opinion with regards to that, Patrick, maybe to help you as well. I'm not going to get into the issue of this whole bail reform, et cetera, how long we've been on it, but it is an issue. But like some pundits have pointed out, we just lost an officer in the line of duty. And in terms of victims and crimes and whatever, and boy, so much of the narrative is, boy, were we a little harsh in bail? Have we dealt with that properly? I'm not going to speak to the particulars, but boy, there's a flood of a narrative on that. And yet I've still got a dead police officer that isn't going home to his family next door. Kind of serious too. And yet the concern about, boy, but did we get it right? Should we have a whole discussion on, maybe there's reasons why bail is the way it is. Have you forgotten someone that's given 30 years of their lives is dead now and is not going back to their family? Kind of a serious thing. Do you at least put it on the other side of the scale? And if we erred too much in one side, well, maybe, somebody that the whole bail system was a little harsh, except for God's sakes, what about the other side of the scale? And it gets frustrating and it gets lost. And that bail debate will end, but a family doesn't have a father and an officer for the rest of their lives. I hope that people remember that. That weighs more heavily on me than, did somebody spend an extra week in bail that they said, oh my God. So I wanted to get that one off my chest. I'm going to leave it at that, Chief, because we'll have more to say. I'm going to go right back to the Chief and have you carry on with your update, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. The next part that I'd like to update the board on, not surprisingly, is the work being done around auto theft. Thankfully, we've had the opportunity to double our commercial auto crime unit. I think everybody here would agree, and many of our partners would, that we continue to lead the work against addressing this issue that is so deeply affecting our community. But, in addressing those gaps, which we don't have necessarily the purview to direct through our advocacy, we're still doing the enforcement. And this is where I want to provide the updates. So we've had, since our last board meeting, we closed out 2 auto theft investigations. One of them resulted in the recovery of $1.6 million worth of stolen vehicles. saw 2 charged with a variety of revinning type offenses. The other resulted in the recovery of $1.8 million worth of stolen cars. And that was actually related to a place in Bolton that was being used to load cars into containers. Again, not surprisingly. But a variety of people were charged with that offense as well. And then the one that I'd mentioned previously was a gentleman who was also involved in revinning. He and his sister were both arrested and charged, and in total faced close to 200 different charges in relation to that. So the reason why I reference these is, again, this year we will charge and arrest more people for auto theft than we ever have. That's not the solution. But that's our commitment. We're going to continue to pursue people and the organized crime that requires people to steal cars from our community. The other thing I'd like to, make a plug for is May 6th to 9th, we are hosting the International Auto Theft Investigators Conference. It'll be the first time that this particular chapter is hosted here in Canada. Again, really excited about that. And it's all of, it's a combination of police along with industry investigators is probably the best way to explain that. And it'll be more collaboration and discussion about how we can begin to address the issue of auto theft. So we're really continuing with our work in that space and very proud of the people that are doing it.
Thank you. Chief, anything further at your end?
Just Deputy Andrews has an announcement.
Oh, no, I apologize.
Oh, sorry.
My screen just lit up with councillors with regards to that item. Oh, no, and I've lost you. Maybe you were getting ready for the next item for comments from my colleagues. Did anybody have anything further on the deputy's comments just now? If not, Chief, back to you.
I think Nick has another short one. Thanks, Nick.
This one is going to be short. We recently announced that one of the homicide investigations that we're involved in has resulted in a program called BOLO, or Be on the Lookout, as adopting it as one of the top 25 most wanted in Canada. Really high level the way the program works. It's privately funded. And for the top 25, they offer $1 million total cash for information leading to the arrest of the wanted party. Ours is the only incident of femicide in that top 25. And it relates to a young woman who was working at a gas station, and we're alleging a person she'd had a previous relationship with, Dharam Dhaliwal, shot her and killed her. So, again, a good success in terms of solving the investigation, but not concluded until we locate him and hold him or bring him to answer for those charges.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief. Pivoting off of Deputy Chief Milinovich's comments on the investigations, the major investigations that are ongoing, we need to balance the pressures of those major investigations, and both at the national and international level, with the need to be responsive to community concerns and community needs for officer presence and responsiveness to community concerns. In that light, in 2022, 22 Division started a project, best described as a project. It was the integration of 2 units, foot patrol and bike patrol, into a what we've called the CERT team, or community intervention and response teams. We created this team out of existing resources in 22, and some of the members from 22 Division CERT team are here present today. I'd like to acknowledge them as we go along. But we did this pilot project to assess our ability to impact those issues of officer presence and community responsiveness. The impact was significant and immediate. And over the course of 2023, I'll just highlight for you, we seized 10 handguns, $250,000 worth of drugs, laid in excess of 300 HTA and LLA charges, and the unit was able to assist with over 40 40 protests and demonstrations all across the region. But it goes beyond that. The ability of our teams to connect with business people, residents, elected officials, and the most marginalized people in those communities, and help keeping them safe, was measured as being beyond what we expected it to be. As a result, in the last budget presentation, we put forward business cases to expand the CERT program across the region, and I'm happy to report that we've been able to stand up CERT at 11 Division in Q1. This unit has been stood up for approximately a month, and we've already seized 2 handguns and made numerous arrests and connected with our business community, 11 Division, in really, really impactful ways. We will continue to expand the program in Q3 in 12 Division and Q4 in 21 Division. I highlight this because this is a direct result of the resources that were obtained through the last process, and continues the need or demonstrate the ability of the team to respond to community concerns, as well as responding to the national and international high-profile issues that we've just heard about from Deputy Milovich.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if not, then I'm going to go to the next item I've got, which is board member questions and announcements. I've got Member Carby, then I've got Member Coley. Member Carby, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address. I will speak on 2 specific programs that I wanted to highlight. First is our auxiliary program. I had the pleasure of attending the last graduation of 20 new addition to our service through our auxiliary team, and it's important to recognize that it's a great recruiting tool. Many of those who are graduating see this as an opportunity to become eventually full-time PEEL officers. And so that was significant. But I think another significant thing I want to highlight is the fact that there are people who are part of this auxiliary group that do this for years and give thousands of hours of their free time to come along and support our service. And I think it can't escape us to take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to them. At the graduation, we had an award that was given to one of our officers, Diane Nowicki. I hope I got the correct pronunciation there, for just literally thousands of hours of coming along. In fact, I got to know her very well from my visits to the headquarters, where she volunteers a lot of time. And so I just wanted to say a special thank you to her. And I wonder if Deputy Chief Mark could speak a little bit about the value of the auxiliary program and how it can help us to find quality recruits for the service. And then I move on to my second point.
Good morning, and through the chair, good morning, board members. Thank you for acknowledging the tremendous work that our auxiliary constables are doing. And you're absolutely right, Mr. Carby. These individuals that number just over 120 for Peel Regional Police devote thousands of hours over years to contribute to community safety. The role that they play is so significant because when we talk about the pressures that we have in our communication centers, for our frontline, for our investigative bureaus, these people are supplementing a lot of the pressures that are happening that are lower threshold administrative tasks and operational tasks, so that our officers can actually perform at their very best in those matters where they're the experts at. So while they may not realize it when they're doing it, because they're intrinsically doing it for community safety and giving back to the community, they are contributing to community safety by supplementing our services. So it was very nice to see you there, and it was a great graduation.
Awesome. Thank you, Deputy Chief. And on my second point I wanted to raise is around the Pro Action Cops for Kids program. Also had the opportunity of going to kind of a fundraiser and award dinner for individuals who, within our service, who are doing tremendous work with this program. I think PRP established its formal relationship with ProAction in just during the COVID pandemic, 2019 to 2020. But I have to spend a little time figuring a little bit more about what the impact of this program is, which I didn't recognize before. This program has been going on from 1991 and has touched the lives of over 418,000 young people in our community. And I think that's important because I think it establishes a narrative of the value between our police service working with young people, working with youth in our community. And it pushes against a narrative that those relationships, as we, it's been highlighted in media and in other places about the challenges of police working with young people. We've put our school program on pause, but here we have an example of real positive relationships between our police service and young people in our community. And so I want to thank Inspector Pete Danos, who leads this program on behalf of PRP, and our chief, who continues to lean into the ProAction program. We were able to, at PRP, deliver a check of over $260,000 at this event, and that particular event also raised another $23,000. That's money that's going directly towards impacting the lives of young people. And this is all being done on the volunteer time of our servicemen and women. So a huge thank you for the work you're doing there, because that's what community safety is all about. So kudos to you for leaning into that partnership, and I think we should continue to support as best we can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Coley.
Thank you. Just two updates. So one is April's been a very auspicious month actually for our community, a lot of celebrations for many, many of our community members. So I just wanted to highlight a few, and of course there's so many, but to our Telugu community, Ugadi celebration, which is a beautiful celebration this month, to our Sikh community, Vaisakhi celebration as well, and I know it's Sikh Heritage Month, and we're going to be celebrating it as well at PRP. To our Tamil community, Happy New Year as well, and Bengali community, which is also known as Bihu, so Happy New Year to them, and of course Eid Mubarak to our Muslim community. So it was a beautiful month of celebration, and hopefully the positive energy continues for the rest of the year for everyone else. And in addition, I just had a second update. So I had the opportunity to do a ride-along this past month, and my ride-along actually began with the journey at our call center. And this is, of course, our NG 911 has just been implemented. So I got firsthand to be able to walk through the call center and really listen to them and understand, what has happened. So I wanted to speak to each one of the members. So firstly, I wanted to recognize Mark Noble for all his work that he's been doing at the call center. He's our inspector of communication operations there, and I know he's been instrumental in a lot of the implementations and work. And I know when I say the word NG 911, it means a lot to us, but maybe from a community perspective, it needs to be explained a bit more, which is why I'm going to be asking Deputy Anthony Eduardi to update that part. But just a few things that I saw immediately, I was so pleasantly surprised. As you know, our call wait times have been a conversation that we've all been talking about here. I know that our mayor's been very vocal about it as well. I know from PRP it's been a big concern. I'll tell you some of the numbers, and I'm just going to highlight this directly from Deputy Chief, but numbers went down from 3 to 4 minute wait times to 11 seconds. That's the numbers we're looking at today. So that is a huge leap and pressure taken off, not only from our call centers, staff and frontline, but also from a community perspective, feeling that now the calls can come through and to the right person and as fast as we can get it. So big, and this is of course a stat that changes, so please do not quote this as real time every day, but I will tell you this much. A year ago when I did my walkthrough, I saw that screen and the wait times and the amount of calls came in, and I kept thinking, in that 5 minutes or 10 minutes that I stood there and stared at that screen, the pressure I felt, I could not imagine what they feel every day and all day when they were looking at that screen. And to see smiles on their face and relief was a really comforting thing, I think, from all of us and for all the work that's been done. I think the other thing I just want to highlight as well is a big thing we talked about was call drops. And I'm explaining what I've understood, so that's why I'm sharing, because I thought that was a really great thing. I got to actually test it. Before, when a call came in and it was dropped, a physical individual had to leave the line to call that person back. Today, with the implementation of NG911, and we tested it, literally you drop a call and you get a call back and it says to you, do you want, if it's an emergency, you press this number, and if it's not, you press this. What it does is immediately alleviate that pipeline so that that individual does not have to do that. And that was a huge relief from the wait times as well. So that's just one or two things that I wanted to highlight. But I did want to say, as I walked around, hearing them say what a relief it's been. So congratulations to your Deputy Eduardi, Chief as well, and also to the staff and the management especially a big shout out to Scott Redstone, who's the Superintendent in Communications. Thank you for all the work that they're doing. And thank you really to our frontline 911 staff for everything they do and every day. So it was really a great thing. And I was hoping if I could just turn it over to Deputy Eduardi, maybe if you could just add a few things to that.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for the recognition of the team. Technology is great, but let me just double down. People are the ones
100%.
who are answering the calls. And they were hired to answer emergency calls and not hired to answer call drops or callback call drops. And the technology is just allowing them to do their jobs, which is still very strenuous, still very busy, but allows them just to focus on their jobs. And if I could just double down on something you said too, the resiliency of our women and men in communications is like no other, and I'm really proud of them. We're just fortunate to have the technology to be able to assist them. You're right. Last year, the average call time was 90 seconds. Likely you were on hold for 3 minutes. We are now down to 11 seconds. We hope that continues to trend, and we're essentially about 86% compliance with NENA standards, which last year we were 30% compliant. So we're trending in the right direction. We still have to tweak the technology, learn how to use it even more, and we hope that the good information continues to come to the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you. If I have no other comments from board members, maybe I just wanted to, because I spoke in response to the chief's comments, but what I wanted to share today was maybe I can sort of bundle all of the above, because here's what I wanted to share to our friends in Peel Region, all the taxpayers. It's really a remarkable day, remarkable month, and on the heels of a 50-year anniversary and a remarkable history of this organization, and why we think we're so good. I'm looking back at events of the last few months. One of my Nandoisms, politics and golf, the only two sports where you get ahead or fall behind, just standing still. We're never standing still. We're in the operations business. But as we go along our way, people forget what it is that you're doing. And as I reflect back on the chair of the region and the chair of the board, you look at Operation 24 Carat and how it really speaks to, on the comments that came out of my mouth just from knowing a bit of the history, how damn good we are at catching bad people in Peel. Like, we're really good at it. And I just, off the top of my head, had a few that came out at the press conference, and I think that's remarkable. Auto theft and what we've done. I use this phrase a lot as well. When you talk about auto theft, when you talk about things like that, we call that Tuesday in Peel 2022. So you folks are just catching up to it. We've been doing this for a while, and we're at the vanguard of that. Bail reform, we've spoken to. And again, a big shout out to the Mayor, Mayor Brown. We've been at the vanguard of that for several years now, and everybody else is catching up. The call wait times. How long have we been on that file? And here we are now with innovation that we've been talking about, and here we are delivering on it. The one line that I loved in the report that said, hey, and some really good news, some of our call takers now can actually take a break for lunch or dinner. Isn't that great? Because that's what the treadmill that they've been on. And yet this incredible innovation that says we're at the vanguard of that as well. Here's the one I hope you didn't miss. Intimate partner violence. Shocking to me that some politicians in Canada don't think it's a problem. More than one in the last couple of weeks. It's overstated, it's not. Are you out of your mind? But I'm not saying that today. We've been saying it for years in Peel. You can't make this stuff up. It's what we've been doing through the chief and this team for decades, and especially in the last 5 years, that we're the leaders. and I'm going to sum up by saying it. I'm going to borrow from the chief, and chief, I'm going to throw it over to you because I want you to make a last comment. But it is one thing to say, what do you want to do? We want to be the most innovative, progressive police service on the galaxy, period. It's an easy thing for people to chortle, like, yeah, what does that really mean? This is what it really means. And you folks deliver. And we got that message delivered this last month with so many things that shone a light on it, from the work that we've done with this team and in the past on our 50th anniversary. And I am very, very, very proud, because we did just talk the talk. This is how we walk the walk, and we sprint the walk. Chief, a last comment to you.
Chair, I appreciate your comments, and back to my earlier statement is that I'm very thankful for what the board has done to allow us to get to doing good things. You've went through sort of a menu board of activities that, and I think we've all tried to echo this every chance we get. It's because of the women and men, some of them that are here but are serving us right now, that all these good things happen. And you've got our commitment to always tell kind of two stories. One will be, moving through this roster of activities that set us apart from other police services, without a doubt. We want the community and public to know as best as they can about these wins. And then the other half is to continue to draw attention to, as you know, and as the board knows, to some pressures that still face us. And, we've talked about cop to pop and all these things that are needed. But those are our next set of areas and wins that we need to press into. And that'll be our journey, and we're not stopping as we move forward for this next year and a bit. Partners, stakeholders, and of course you and our elected officials. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well said, everyone. So let's get on with it. Let's get back to work. First item that I have on our official agenda is the approval of the minutes. The minutes of the board meeting held Friday, February 23, 2024. Recommendation that they be received. I have a motion moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Ahmed. Anybody opposed? Any amendments? Seeing none, that is carried. Our first deputation, item 2, Safe City, Mississauga 2023 Annual Impact Report Presentation. We have a deputation from our friend Teresa Burgess-Ogilvie and Mr. Gerald Haddad. Teresa, welcome, and Gerald, welcome. Okay, have you flipped the mic on? Have you, the little red button there? There we are.
Thank you. I'll start over. My 5 minutes hasn't started yet, so I'm good. Okay, excellent. Chair Unica, members of the Peel Police Services Board, and Chief Nish and the leadership team, I'm pleased to present our 2023 Annual Impact Report. Safe City, Mississauga has been a trusted leader in crime prevention for 30 years. We are the only nonprofit organization dedicated to proactive community crime prevention. Safe City, Mississauga programs and services help ensure people stay safe at home, school, and work. And we bring today's most effective and timely crime prevention programs and techniques directly into the homes, schools, and businesses based on our strategic pillars. Organization-wide, here are some quick facts that tell our story on participation, volunteers, and outreach. And we want to say thank you to all of our volunteers. These are some of the indicators of impact for the Neighborhood Watch program. School Watch and Civics for Kids is growing. It is a very popular program for children and youth based on our evaluations. Same growth interest is occurring in Business Watch. And of course, it's always important to identify those areas for potential enhancement, as you guys just did. Safe City, Mississauga works collaboratively with community partners to confront today's key crime concerns, such as Peel Regional Police for crime analysis, Seneca College for auto theft, UTM for intimate partner violence. We have something big coming on that. Region of Peel DME Action Table, Peel Regional Police and Community Committee on Countering Hate, and community networks. Neighborhood Watch is driven by evidence and data to maximize effectiveness. In 2023, we activated 36 new watches and now serve over 8,000 active members. One Neighborhood Watch reported reducing crime by approximately 80%. With the help of the mayor and members of council, we have residents from all ages and demographics participate in crime prevention activities across the city and participating in doing something to lift everyone. Business Watch is still fairly new, but enjoying the growth to help businesses connect and get educated in crime prevention strategies. School Watch is also still a fairly new program and also enjoying growth in the schools and community organizations. And we have had a lot of growth and support for the new Civics for Kids program that was reborn from the Counteract program. Since December of 2023, we have had $11,500 donated by Rotary Mississauga, Meadowvale, Legion, and Lions Club to produce workbooks for children. And besides program delivery, we also endeavor to run social media campaigns, such as #FutureGrad and See It, Fix It, which replaced our graffiti-free campaign. Besides programs and campaigns, we also plan and execute numerous events, including community outreach and knowledge transfer events. There were 11 Neighbor Night Out events. These are the 11 neighborhood watches that held that event. Operation Clean Sweep, it's the rapid removal and cleanup of graffiti and litter to help reduce criminal activity. And this is Ascension of Our Lord Secondary School in Malton, cleaning up their neighborhood while earning volunteer hours. And more community events. Hosted our 12th annual Justice Luncheon, raising money for programs. The Justice Luncheon was well sponsored and well attended, and we hope it continues to grow. We also hosted our 12th annual conference with Sheridan College, and the topic was online harms. The conference was well sponsored and well attended, and we hope it also continues to grow. In 2023, we celebrated Mississauga residents making a difference in crime prevention. Our Individual Hero Award winner was Rushi Ambiki. Our Youth Hero Award winner was Harman Singh. The Organization Group Award winner was Naughty Pine Grove Neighborhood Watch. Safe City Mississauga strives to establish a foundation for financial stability so we can concentrate on delivering programs, campaigns, events, and community collaborations. We have added a social enterprise called The Shop. And in 2023, we registered again to participate in charitable gaming shifts to fund program expenses for Neighborhood Watch. This is the team of 3 serving over 9,000 members with programs, projects, events, campaigns, and partnerships. Amazing board of directors, past and present, and we couldn't do it without all of our supporters. Safe City Mississauga is focused on today while preparing for tomorrow. Thank you.
Wow, what a great presentation. Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Mr. Mahoney, please, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And no questions, just really wanted to thank you both for coming. I did have the privilege of sitting on Safe City Board in my first term on council. Gerald, you're everywhere when it comes to Neighborhood Watch, and I certainly do appreciate your interaction with the community. As much as it's a partnership with community safety, it also brings community together, which I think is extremely important. So whether we have community events, you're always there. Is that me? You're always there to support the community and also give residents, that little bit of backup along with PRP that we're kind of here for community safety. So certainly just wanted to thank you, appreciate all the good work that you do, and certainly do keep it up. So again, thanks very much, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and the team going forward. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Coley.
I actually just wanted to echo as well what Matt just said, is just the work that you do. I've seen the signs everywhere, the work that you do. You hear it from the community of what you do as well, and you're such a great asset to the city of Mississauga, and so thank you just for all that you do from a community engagement perspective. Great presentation, by the way, and 5 minutes. That's great.
Mr. Carby.
Thanks, Chair. I couldn't believe you got through this presentation in 5 minutes. Clearly, you're a pro at this. Certainly, I echo the comments around the great work you're doing. But if I could lean into just one specific area, I participated in a summit at the Sheridan College that was focused on online harm. And of course, it's threats to our community are not always just the physical ones you see out there from a car or theft or whatever, but online harm is becoming a huge thing, especially in the younger generation. Is there anything you can add to just kind of some learning out of that summit that can help inform our community about the value of paying more attention in that particular area?
So our role is to bring these issues, whether, in fact, we started to do a conference on bail reform. We want to always be that leader also in community crime prevention. And so we try to bring things that are happening worldwide and bring them here for those kinds of discussions. And one of the things that we found that came out of that is really taking hold is, you know, what makes people troll? What makes people hate? What makes people find those behaviors that put them online behind a screen to do those kind of activities? And having those discussions about the psychological pieces that put people into those rooms. So I don't know if anyone will pick up anything that came out of the conference and run with it, but it spurs conversations, and that's what we want to happen with all of our conferences. Is we're only a team of 3 in a small organization, but we're trying to make a big impact. And the biggest impact we can do is to bring that information forward to people like yourselves who can help us to then say, yes, that's an issue that we need to do more with and partner on, such as the Preventing Hate Committee.
Absolutely, and thank you, therefore, for flagging that as such an important thing, because it does raise our awareness around it,
Exactly.
and hopefully, you know, more organizations that are focused on safety, including policing, will lean into where the potential harm is, and spend some more resources in trying to you know, bring that down as much as possible. So thank you again for the incredible work you guys do.
Chief, did you want to top that up before I carry on, please?
Just to thank you again, Teresa, to your team, and Chair Sarah. I know she's here as well. When we look at all the issues that we face in our community, we always talk about it being a shared responsibility. I think, you know, Safe City is a perfect example of that materializing in so many different formats. So thank you on behalf of the PRP team.
Thank you. Member Atia, please.
Thank you very much for presenting this today. I have a question about your neighborhood watch. I mean, I grew up seeing it everywhere, but never really, you know, appreciated the work that goes into it. So some questions. I mean, how does it start? How does a new neighborhood start? You know, is it triggered by someone in the neighborhood who calls you? And then how long does it take to kind of get that neighborhood set up? And what is the role of the organization in supporting? What is the role of the community? Just give us some perspective behind the scenes. Like, how does this happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So in terms of the activation process, so what typically happens is that a concerned resident will reach out to us with interest in starting a neighborhood watch, or we'll get references organically through some of the many awareness events that we do in partnership with counselors and Peel Regional Police. And from there, we'll walk them through how to activate the neighborhood watch, which involves community outreach, getting people to buy in and sign up for the program. Because it's not enough for us to just put up a neighborhood watch sign and call it a day, right? There has to be that active community participation. And so we get people to sign up for the program. We train them on the different reporting resources, the importance of reporting and having those eyes on the street in our neighborhood watches. And we also provide support in crime prevention through environmental design, where we'll actually walk the streets with the neighbors and point out what are the physical environmental features that might be encouraging crime in the neighborhood, and work to implement those solutions and evaluate them accordingly. So after that, we have our activation meeting, train them on that, and make sure that we're staying in touch with our neighborhood watches, providing support where needed, bringing in the police where needed as well, and of course, help them with their community engagement opportunities too. Yeah.
Just a quick follow through the chair. Like, can you give us an example of an outcome, like an outcome of establishing a neighborhood watch and crime that's been prevented?
Right. So as we listed in our annual report, a great example is the Apple Road Neighborhood Watch. They started their neighborhood watch in response to a rash of vehicle break-ins that happened early 2020. They went to the streets. They recruited over 90 of their 100 residents on their street to join in this program. We trained them, again, on the reporting resources, on crime prevention through environmental design, how to engage their community. And since then, they estimate a feeling of reduced crime by about 80%. And since then, the only noise that I hear in that neighborhood is, oh, they're throwing another party. They're throwing another event. They're throwing another town hall with their counselor. So in terms of activity that's going on there, it's everything that you used to see in the TV shows, where it's the kind of neighborhood where you can, ask for your neighbor for a bowl of sugar, right? It's that kind of a safe neighborhood that we've built with the Neighborhood Watch program.
Thank you. Thank you very much for what an excellent 5-minute presentation. You don't realize the depth and the breadth of everything you folks do and do very, very well. And in your case, done for a long, long time. Thank you very, very much. I have receipt moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Councillor Vice Chair Coley. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, carrying on with the agenda, we have no presentations at this time. So under new business, under our consent agenda, items 4 to 10 will be approved in one motion. The following reports are considered to be routine or have already been considered and discussed by committees of the Peel Police Services Board. So if I have consent for items 4 through 10 as moved by Vice Chair Coley, seconded by Mayor Brown, anybody opposed? Do I have item Atia, Councillor Atia, you may have something on one of them, please.
I'm not a counselor.
Sorry. It could be seen as a demotion in some circles. Sorry.
I have a question about one
Please,
of them.
by
Is that
all
okay?
means,
We
please.
don't have to remove it from consent.
No,
but
please,
maybe-
why don't you
okay.
ask the question at this time?
Just the
Mr.
question
Atia.
about the operating capital financial report. Just the first operating budget, point number 1, clarity. It says that net expenditures were on budget. But in the second sentence confuses me. I need clarification. PRP completed budgeted draws of 1.8 million from the working reserve and $500,000 from the benefits reserve. Does that mean we drew to cover costs from our reserve? And if so, doesn't that mean we didn't meet budget? We overspent? So
Through to staff, Lauren, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Atia, and through the chair. It's a great question and happy to provide clarity. I think something you said is exactly the key piece, that every year annually we budget to withdraw up to $2 million from reserves. So these are budgeted reserves. The $500,000 that you mentioned from benefits, my understanding as I come into the seat is that a few years ago we noticed an uptick in benefits usage as a result of the change in benefits package granted through the board through the last bargaining agreement, and we were seeing an uptick in usage. So as opposed to, for instance, having that impact our budget in a multi-million-dollar way in 1 year, the decision was made to draw from reserves on a multi-year fashion. 2023 was the last year you'll see that benefits withdrawal. And then just to provide additional context, the board may recall that at the second triannual report, we had been forecasting a deficit, and that was due to, with board approval, of course, that we provided a premium to communicators, which was forecasting a deficit. However, by year end, we had an unforeseen amount or a higher amount of revenue that came in from things such as records, paid duties, central alarms, things such as that, as well as some grants that came in as well, which allowed us to make up for that deficit and therefore withdraw less than we had budgeted for, so which is through 1.8. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Atia.
Thank you. Just another comment. I'm glad you mentioned it. Maybe the taxpayer should know, especially in the post-COVID era, and I know Councillor Mahoney knows it, at the regional level and at our benefits for looking after the health and wellness of our employees really did uptick, and no surprise when you think back of the road we've traveled. So very good answer. Thank you. If there are no other questions, it's been moved and seconded as a consent report. Any other comments? If not, that carries. Thank you. Moving on then to other new business. We're on to item 11. The first one is with regards to the 2023 Corporate Risk Management Annual Public Report. Chief, I don't know if you wanted to present this.
Thank you, Chair. I do have Staff Superintendent Ottaway here and Council Sharon Wilmot to speak to some of it. As you can see, it's a combination of legislated reporting as it pertains to the SIU, as well as our public complaints and internal discipline. So Sharon or Marty, can I look to both of you for anything, highlights? Because there may be discussion points from the board as it pertains to some elements.
So I can just give a quick overview if there's any questions, and if Marty wants to jump in, he's welcome to. So the SIU portion of this report is obviously a summary of the reports that the board gets on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. You have the more detailed summaries from the section, they used to be section 11, now section 34 reports. Those come on the in-camera. This is a summary, sort of numbers, outcomes, and costs. The disciplinary offenses is a summary of the formal conclusion of substantiated misconduct events. So some of these are from previous years. They're reported in this year's report because this is the year that they were had their final disposition in our tribunal. So we've outlined a very brief summary of there was 11 concluded matters. Very brief summary. As we've discussed, these are all reported publicly on our website. So when the matter's concluded, we post the tribunal decision on the website. So we've kept minimum information here, but happy to answer any questions about specific ones. And then the Public Complaints Bureau is just a summary of all of the matters that come in through what was formerly OIPRD and is now the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency. So I'm happy to ask any specific questions on any particular matters here.
Mr. Attia.
I have a few questions, if you indulge me, through the chair, and I'll just maybe go one at a time. Okay. On the second page, regarding SIU, there are 3 types of investigations. I understand SIU investigations, but what are subject official and the witness official designation types?
So there's only one type of investigation. They're all investigations, but in every SIU investigation, the SIU designates a subject officer, and that is an officer who may be deemed to potentially have some criminal liability. So there's some jeopardy in the officer's involvement in this, because the SIU's mandate is to look into any incident that may have some sort of criminal aspect. So subject official designations tend to be lower because it's usually the officer that has the direct involvement in the incident. And as sort of outlined previously, these are all incidents where serious bodily harm or death has resulted. The witness official designations are just the number of officers in the total. So there was 34 investigations, and across the board, there were 119 officers who are designated as witnesses. So those are officers that were present or that have some relevant evidence to provide. And the SIU designates them as witnesses so that they can get their notes, body-worn camera, evidence, and potentially interview them to get further information.
Okay. In the third page, the fifth offense, is this the 2021 Huff Gym case that the board has discussed in the past? I believe we've discussed it publicly here.
That's correct. And it was a public decision that, again, because the officer was off for some time, it was resolved in 2023, but it would have investigated starting in 2021. The officer did plead guilty and submit an apology in the tribunal. And as you will see, was demoted for a period of 12 months. That one actually also, when you're looking at some of the OIPRD, the public reports, you'll note that out of the 91 public reports, 8 of them were substantiated. One of those was one of the matters pertaining to this. So all of those 8 matters that were substantiated then go into this formal conduct. So one of those substantiated matters was also part of this tribunal conclusion.
Okay, and thank you for that. And number 7, it's a very generic description of the offense, concerns about the officer's involvement in an incident.
Yeah.
I think, can you offer some more?
I can, and I can, we can offer more. The reason it was a little bit generic in this case is that it involved a domestic occurrence where the victim was a youth. It was, there was a familial relations. So it was a bit of a difficult case because we did not want to obviously identify the youth who was involved. But essentially what happened was this was an off-duty officer who became aware of an investigation involving a member of his family and attended at the scene, conducted some searches and released some information to the other involved family members. It was a missing persons / domestic assault case. And so essentially it was dealt with as a conflict of interest and an improper use of police resources.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of public complaints, you answered kind of, I was going to ask you the 91, how much were substantiated, so thank you. I heard you say 8. Can you give us more perspective on the nature of those 8 in types? Yeah.
So out of those 8, I can say that 4 of them actually are in these summaries of formal complaints. So out of the substantiated 8, we had the one that I referred you to, which was the COVID, the Huff Gym one. That was one of the substantiated public complaints. One of the other substantiated public complaints was number 2, which is the civilian who made a complaint about having to conduct physical exercises. That started as an OIPRD complaint. So what will happen is that the OIPRD will refer them to us, or they will retain them. We will look at them, and then once they're substantiated, they will go to a hearing. A couple of them, if you just give me 1 second, I have the details, but for the most part, these were interactions with the public that had some element of a criminal investigation as well. There were 2, I believe, also that were historic criminal investigations that we tend to hold down the Police Services Act, now the CSPA, Police Services Act investigations to maintain the integrity of the criminal process. So they've come forward. So a couple of them are interactions. 2 were interactions of unnecessary use of force. One was incident where a taser was deployed in circumstances that was deemed excessive. And I believe that one of them had a racial element, an element of essentially carding and racial profiling, and that was also dealt in the tribunal.
Thank you for that summary.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on the consent items? If not, it's been moved. Anybody opposed? That is carried. That was our risk management number 11. Dealt with. I need a mover. It'll be Ahmed, seconded by Mr. Boughton. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Item 12, Microsoft United Enterprise Support Services report dated March 8, 2024 from Deputy Chief Woodward, Innovation and Technology Command, providing the board with a request to enter into direct negotiation with Microsoft Canada. Chief and the Deputy, any comments before we deal with it?
Thank you. And through the chair, as you know, we're essentially a Microsoft shop, and we've been doing business with Microsoft for over 25 years. With the recent move to cloud, Azure, and having our members to Microsoft 0365, which allows remote working and allows boots on the ground and our members to do and access information offsite. We do require further support from the company. That support is over the $250,000 threshold, and that's why it's before the board today.
Any questions, comments? If not, it's moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Vice Chair Coley. Anybody opposed? That is carried. And on to item 13, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Annual Hate-Motivated Crimes Report. Here from Deputy Chief DePatt, Community Safety and Wellbeing Command, providing the board with the 2023 hate-motivated crime statistics. Again, Chief, either to you or Deputy Chief DePatt, anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, The report before the board is the annual hate motivated crime report for 2023 prepared by Inspector Faraz Ishmael. And I've invited a few members of our diversity, equity, and inclusion team to provide the highlights of the report. While they get set up, it's important for the board to know that hate crimes have a tremendous impact on our community, as they know, and incidents that are occurring locally, nationally, and internationally impact feelings of safety and well-being, general unease. And what we do know is that hate crimes are vastly underreported, and we devote significant effort to ensure the community, through our engagements and partnerships, report these types of incidents of hate crime. And it's also important to note that PRP investigate hate crimes vigorously. There is no position that we take that doesn't take into account the impact that this has on the community, and we do take it very seriously. With that, I'd like to introduce everybody to Acting Inspector Chris Croze and Detective Sarah Wood to present the highlights of the report.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you, through you, thank you, Deputy Pat, and good morning to the board. It's a privilege for Sarah and I to sit here before you to discuss this report, but prior to doing that, I think it would be important just to acknowledge all the members, civilian and sworn, both not just from our front line who responds to these acts, but also our DEI unit, our CSWB Bureau. It's a real collaborative effort that there's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of the great work. As mentioned, this report is just going to be a very, very brief highlight of the overall report that I believe you all have. And just before we jump into some of the highlights from last year, I just wanted to maybe preface the conversation with a little context that, as we all know, hate-motivated crimes are among the most underreported crimes. And this topic, as the deputy mentioned, is a very complex issue. Hate-motivated crimes in our communities, they really impact individuals in really a lot of different negative ways. And these impacts often result in a feeling of fear, marginalization, alienation, and this is last year's total hate-motivated crimes. As you can see, there is a spike from 2022 to 2023. We moved from 123 to 162. And that, I think a specific note there that you see 35 of those were actually resulted in a charge. So there is an uptick there from the previous years. And this could be attributed to a number of different factors, which I will now turn over to Sarah to just kind of dive a little deeper into.
Thank you. So as we get into our statistics a little bit further, this chart depicts our hate motivation crimes by motivation type. So if we look at the data, race and nationality continues to be our #1 motivating factor for hate motivated crimes. And then in religion, we've seen a 130% increase of hate-motivated crimes motivated by religion. And then we also see an increase of hate-motivated crimes motivated by sexual orientation. And I'll probably provide some context into these increases as the presentation progresses. So this next chart outlines hate crime victimization based on ethnic origin and racial background. So as we see here, the Black community continues to be targeted most frequently, and this is a trend that we've seen over the past few years. And then we also see an increase of hate-motivated crimes against our South Asian community. So there obviously is many contributing factors to this increase, one being the geopolitical events in India related to the Kazakhstan movement. And just something else you might notice here of 0 hate crimes against our Middle Eastern community. So when we got into this data a little bit further, what we saw was the hate crimes against our Middle Eastern community were actually reflected more in our religion motivating factor. So in saying that, I just mean that our Middle Eastern community is targeted more so for religion as opposed to the ethnic background. And as I was just speaking about religion, this next graph outlines our hate-motivated crimes that are targeting specific religious groups. And as we see here, there's been an increase and a spike of hate-motivated crimes against our Jewish and our Muslim communities. And just of note, of these hate-motivated crimes, the majority of them have been from a non-violent nature, so meaning graffiti, property damage, those type of offenses. So I'm just going to speak quickly on some trends we've noticed and some contributing factors to those trends. Now, in determining some contributing factors, what we've done is we look at the investigations themselves and the information provided. And that's more so from a victim perspective, as the accused is often unknown in these circumstances. We also collaborate with our communities, and our DEI unit attends weekly meetings with police services all across Canada relating to hate crimes trends. So then we take all that information available to us and come up with some possible contributing factors. Of course, there may be other ones at play as well. So just our first trend that we noticed, I spoke about briefly before, was the increase of hate-motivated crimes motivated by religion, and specifically targeting the Jewish and the Muslim communities. Now, in looking at these contributing factors, the groups that are targeted and the timelines, these do correlate with the geopolitical events in the Middle East, which began on October 7th. And the next trend that I touched on briefly was the increase that we saw of hate-motivated crimes motivated by sexual orientation. Now, again, there could be multiple contributing factors to this, some of them being the enactment of various legislations across various provinces across Canada, as well as a spike in protests or misinformation relating to the 2S LGBTQ+ community and associated conversations.
Just to pick up the earlier notes that you made, Mr. Chair and Chief, about being progressive, innovative, and inclusive, and walking the walk. I just wanted to highlight a couple of initiatives that the DEI unit is currently, and you may have heard of some of these already, but I just want to update the board on some of these initiatives. The first one is our reassurance protocol that we have had in existence for some time, but we continue to evolve. This is a unique protocol that we're really proud to stand by, as it really is victim-centered in the sense that we really make an effort to follow up with our victims and connect with them to provide wraparound supports, resources that they might require to go through this difficult time. And as Sarah mentioned, these incidents, no matter how big or small, are all taken very, very seriously. And we understand that each victim has a unique experience that we want to ensure they feel our support. And this program continues to develop in the sense that both our hate crime coordinators at the divisional level, our DEI officers, and everybody involved from start to finish, all of these actions and all of these interventions are documented and reported and recorded for us to continue to evolve and develop and grow in order to serve our community better. The next one is our online hate crime reporting platform. This platform was specifically designed to cater to reporting hate crimes and hate incidents online. Vice Chair Simita Kohli mentioned the demands on the call center, and we want to ensure that hate crimes don't get overlooked or missed. We have increased our response through the call center, and we will continue that service excellence when somebody is reporting it through that channel. But this is an additional avenue that we thought was important in order to make this opportunity, as we all know, as it's so underreported. We wanted to increase the feeling and sense of safety through our community members in order to report. So this can be done through their cell phone, at home, on their computer. It's a way that we can reach out and encourage more reporting. And it's, as I mentioned, specifically catered to the questions and the types of things that a victim of such crimes might be experiencing. There will be screening questions that if it is something severe with the culprit or a suspect, that it will get diverted to communications. It doesn't have to wait in a system, but we're really excited to announce that this is going to be, we have a launch there of April 24, but it's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. And finally, this is just really an update. I believe we announced last year at this meeting that we were fortunate enough to secure a public safety grant and developed, sorry, I should say co-developed training module, countering hate, that I know many of you were at the launch of that a few weeks back. But this is a really exciting time for us to, as you mentioned, walk the walk. And this program, in conjunction with 25 other community members, was developed in conjunction with the community for the community. And we rolled out a train the trainer model that's going to be delivered to the community that will be culturally responsive in the sense that each sub-community has different needs and has different levels of education awareness. And we want to make sure that it's not like a cookie cutter approach that we're just putting out generically. So the overwhelming commitment and passion from this committee to create this training module led us to the application and successfully attaining the Proceeds of Crime Frontline Policing Grant through the Solicitor General's Office, which allowed us to hire a full-time education, training, outreach, and navigating coordinator, which I'd like to just take a quick second to acknowledge, who you heard from earlier, Gerald, the dad, is our ETON coordinator from Safe Cities Mississauga. So we use that funding to put towards Mr. Haddad's position, and also coming out in the near future, we have a vehicle dedicated specifically for hate crimes that will be wrapped with our connectivity through social media, through online, and have those types of information that we can help be part of our rollout to this training to the community. There is a short video here that I'd like to just show to help showcase the work of this training. If you bear with me, I understand it's going to take a few seconds to load, that I'm hoping is not counting against our time.
The Peel Regional Police, in alliance with a diverse range of faith, cultural, and human service partners, have come together to form our Countering Hate Committee. This symposium was a way to share this work with the community and send a strong message that we are united against hate.
For Peel Police, I can tell you any form of hate is intolerable. And I want to just be clear about it. There is an unequivocal commitment from us to stop, combat, investigate,
We all understand how sensitive and emotionally draining this topic is, and how it can be so difficult for many of us. We also know that these issues run deep and leave scars. We're proud to announce that we've co-developed a comprehensive countering hate training module that is now accessible to the community. We are proud of this module because we want the community to know that they are not alone when dealing with hate.
And if we come together and acknowledge that we are all aligned when it comes to making sure that we pour all of our collective efforts into mitigating this as much as possible.
If you are interested in having a member of our team deliver the presentation to your organization, business, or place of worship, we encourage you to reach out to us directly.
And just to conclude that presentation, I just wanted to just reiterate that hate-motivated crimes are something that we as a police take very, very seriously. We will continue to evolve our policies and our procedures in order to adapt our response to be as meaningful and as impactful as we can, and that we are committed to responding, investigating, tracking, and reporting these crimes to continue to contribute and work towards our safer community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great presentation. Many questions. First up, Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Unica. Thank you, first of all, for the great work. I'm glad that in Peel, the chief and the team have set a very clear stand that hate crime is not tolerated. Um, Despite the very clear leadership, I am worried that communities are feeling less safe than ever before. What I hear in Brampton in particular is that there's more worries about anti-Semitism than ever before. There are more worries about Islamophobia than ever before. In the Sikh community, we with the extrajudicial killing in Surrey, I know members of local Gujaras have, specifically expressed concern about their safety given their faith. And so, if there's ever a time to double down on our zero tolerance against hate crimes, it's now. And so, is there anything additional we could be doing? What more could Peel Region be doing, the Peel Police could be doing to be the gold standard and not tolerating hate crimes in our country? Knowing how diverse we are, this is a bit of a tinderbox in the sense that it affects our region more than probably anywhere else because we are a mosaic of faiths and ancestry. Is there anything that you can think of that is being done elsewhere that we could do to additionally support your efforts?
Thank you for that, Mayor. That's an excellent point and question you raised. As I was intending, this was just really a highlight of the report. But to your point, yes, we are doing already a ton of work in our very unique and rich, diverse community. To the places of worship you mentioned, our gurdwaras, our synagogues, our mosques, we have DEI officers daily, weekly visiting, involving meetings with their religious faith leaders. All of the events that were mentioned earlier that were going on this past month, but in all the months, we maintain such a close relationship with those places, and not just place of worship, but also cultural centers, in order to continue to build that trust and to hear from the community what it is that they need. And anecdotally, perhaps this could be part of why there is some uptick is we do feel the sense that we are making some kind of ground with these places to increase reporting when maybe perhaps their unique needs might have prevented them in the past to come forward to the police. We have had tremendous feedback in the appreciation of our attendance, our engagement, our information sessions, and we want to leverage those relationships to springboard injecting this training to help kind of solicit more information and awareness to make them feel safe ultimately.
Yeah, and to Chair Nika, just one final comment. Geopolitical events reverberate more here than most parts of the country. We feel it. I also find sometimes when there is a feeling of hate crimes, the transparency that is brought through an investigation sometimes disarms the worry that the community has. I remember there was an example where there were some mandirs that were vandalized, and the police did an incredible job in robberies, and they quickly apprehended the individuals responsible, and it wasn't a hate crime. And so tension that was very visible for me in the community was dissipated. And so I hope that we have the resources necessary when there's a hate crime committed or an allegation of hate crime that we do take it seriously, investigate it, because that is very disarming as well. And I know, Chief, you've been so articulate and eloquent talking about it in the community. And so I know you'll tell us at budget time or to Al that we have everything we need, but it is so disarming when we're able to realize that it wasn't a hate crime, or frankly, if it was a hate crime, and to make an example of it showing that this is not allowed here. And so thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Nish, for your leadership.
The deputy might like to top that up. Deputy DePatt.
Thank you. And Chris said it very eloquently. Obviously, when we see upticks or when we see the statistics of hate crimes that are occurring, we like to think that it's happening because obviously crimes are happening, but also we're very proud to say that we've established such a connection with the community that they feel and know that when something as heinous as this happens, that the Peel Regional Police will take it very seriously. I will say that at the table nationally, our hate crime investigations and the way that we support the community in tandem is something that is being emulated across the country. I say that with great pride because it is a very, very challenging, complex situation. And as far as anything further that we can do, we are doing a lot. It's advocacy to continue reporting. It's ensuring that when there are opportunities to strengthen and target hardening of faith-based institutions, that we advocate on behalf of that community. But we still have a long way to go.
Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge, and thank you for at least leaning into naming the issue specifically. It's not just crime, it's hate crime, and leaning into defining this. The impact of it is long lasting. I speak to individuals from even the Chinese community who, at the beginning of COVID, when there were certain, there was leaning into hate crimes related to that specific community because of the pandemic and, where it originated and all of that kind of stuff. And to this day, they feel, impacted, even though the number of occurrences may have reduced. So I wanted us to lean a little bit more into the establishing those long-term relationships, because although there may be a shift in where we're seeing hate crimes, those impacted communities still live with the harm created during that period. While you were doing the report, the area that I wanted to lean into a little bit, and I had some questions, was around the initiative around countering hate crime in the community. What started out in my mind as a question was eventually answered by the video and some of the additional information. So thank you so much for that. The piece that I want to maybe commend you on is the countering hate crime training module, which is equipping parts of our community to help you spread the word. So in other words, you're training the trainers and getting others to join the effort of combating this, scourge in our society. And it's not just on our hands, but also the community that you're trying to bring alongside. So thank you for that specific initiative. And if there's, as the mayor had pointed out, although we may feel like we're making some headway in there and the numbers are still maybe even reducing, people don't feel it. And when you talk to members of the community, they don't feel safe in spite of all the efforts. And I wonder if there's any way we can maybe speak to what we can do more to help, providing that reassurance that this is, a top priority for us here in Peel.
Thank you. That's a great question. So I appreciate the sentiment, the feeling, and of that sense of unsatisfactory or feeling unsafe, as you said. That really, and this is where I think it's to your point, not just a long-lasting feeling, but a long-lasting approach we need to take to this. That this can't be solved with an officer showing up at the door. And although these initiatives might have the same names, they're evolutionary as well. So when we say something like the reassurance protocol, what the person feels at the time might change in a week or in a month or in a year. And that's where when I talked about us continuing to follow up, continuing to document, this is something that we learn through our community members to find out that what is exactly that they need at these times, because it's so unique. Everybody needs something different, and that's what sets these crimes apart from other crimes. Is it might not just be myself who a comment might have been directed at, but my children might have been present, and there's a residual effect there. So we take each of these as a case by case, and I think in order for us to do more is to do more. So the more we can do to have that ripple effect, and I keep going back to the training, and Gerald and I have had conversations. It's so exciting to hear communities reaching out when they learn about this to sign up for it. I want people on this training committee. I want to get it out because we can do that with that community together with the police, or we can do that behind the scenes. But it's getting that word out that the police take it seriously, because we know that some of these communities might have a mistrust in the police or are newcomers to Canada from different countries that don't have police operating that the way we do here in Peel. And it's really that awareness and that education that we're trying different avenues. I mentioned the online reporting. We need to kind of do the work for it to have an effect. So if I'm a victim and I use the online program and I have a positive response, I might share that with my colleagues or my peers, my faith institution. So as the deputy mentioned, we have a long way to go, but we're committed to it and we'll continue to be committed to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Attia.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to acknowledge the hate crimes summit that you held. I heard from a lot of people afterwards who attended, who came to share with me and spoke very highly of the program, and also would ask me why weren't you there. So I had to figure that one out. But so I apologize for not participating because this topic has been very important to me as a board member throughout my term. The board consultations we recently had, this was a common topic that we heard. And, we heard people's concerns about hate crimes. We heard a lot about underreporting of hate crimes. But we also heard, feedback from community groups and leaders about their willingness to be a partner with Peel Police and open up their institutions, play a more active role so that their constituents can learn about reporting hate crimes, but also maybe even report hate crimes in their places of worship, where it's a safe space, maybe where language barriers can be addressed easier. So, the message was we're willing to allow, to extend our institutions, to Peel Police to create a mechanism that community members can do reporting. And so I think there's a bit of learning there, maybe opportunities if we, as a team, if you can go back and reflect on some of the things that were said and see whether that, there's some value add to the work that you're doing, the really good work that you're doing. It's really disappointing that we see rising hate crimes in our country, in Canada, and this report clearly in Peel as well. This is not a country where we should be seeing that. We should be celebrating our diversity. So this is an issue that we need to continue to address. It's not a Peel issue. It's at every level of government has to play a role, and we need to figure this out. Right? It's unacceptable. So I just want to express, for me personally, I never grew up in a Canada that looked like this, and to see it today, the way it is, the way it's going is very frustrating. A comment about the Middle East stats, Middle Eastern background stats. I wonder whether we need to continue to better understand, and I brought this up many board meetings before about, we understand Islamophobia, we understand anti-Semitism. There's a history there. Like there's been a lot of public discourse and research, and but the recent events globally have kind of introduced a discussion around anti-Palestinian racism, and we may not understand that as much. It's not a new phenomenon, but it's kind of a newer one in public discussion, and I wonder whether we need to understand it better to be able to distinguish between, someone's faith and someone's race, but also someone's perspective on global issues, right? And so maybe we might be, I don't know, maybe whether we're categorizing things, but in the recent months, I've heard from several people about hate they've experienced because of their views on Palestine, for instance, and they've not got the traction from Peel Police or the response or the understanding from an officer to understand why it's hate. A lot of this is online hate, and so I think there's some work there to understand it better and the lived experiences. And which takes me to my next point. Like a lot of this is very important in understanding the lived experiences of people, right? Understanding hate is about understanding the impact an experience has on someone's life, right? And I want to give some feedback about, in the final part of the report, there's an analysis on why certain hate crimes have increased, certain communities have been impacted. And one of the paragraphs reflects on a uptick in a particular community that we have to take, we have to really think about why it's happening, and that's the LGBTQ plus community. And I sit on the board of Human Rights Watch Canada. Human Rights Watch does a lot of research on the rights of LGBTQ and the impacts on them, both in Canada and around the world. And so there's a lot of learning there and understanding their lived experiences. And I think at PO we need to continue to understand their experiences. What I find with this paragraph that we need to reflect more on, and the board has some feedback about it, is that in understand, we're almost like it's such, as this is kind of an issue that really took an uptick last year, and I think we're learning more about it and why it's happened. The analysis draws some conclusions that could, in understanding one community's lived experience, which is important, could stigmatize another community or another demographic who has a perspective. And so, for instance, you say there's one of the factors is you call it the anti-2SL LGBTQ plus legislation. You've labeled a legislation in our country, that's in another province, but also legislation that was referred to by our own premier as that, when it was really legislation, from my understanding, as surrounding parental rights. And so we've taken a whole legislation and we've categorized it with a particular intention and suggested that the legislation is playing a role in rising hate crimes. And so I have that's one concern, and something like that needs to be supported, like more evidence-based, to kind of come to that ultimate conclusion. And the other one is that we have, as we all know, last year we saw increased protests around what the protests were being called as parental rights protests. And we've also then categorized these protests as anti-2S LGBTQ plus protests. And while I understand there were incidents around the country that were hateful towards this community, the protests were about parental rights. And there's a lot of families who went out who had concerns. And what we are doing in this Peel Police report is labeling everybody who attended those protests as hateful, right? In fact, this actual thing was criticized at the time because there were politicians who had called it hate rallies and anti-LGBT rallies, and this was criticized, right? And there was a big debate around it. But we need to be careful because, in contrast, like the precedence it sets, right, is that, when we listen to the lived experiences and the issue today, the Israel-Palestine issue, when we listen to lived experiences of people reporting hate crimes of anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or anti-Palestinian racism, many of them will view the protests as such, right? So are we going to then, as Peel Police, call a pro-Palestinian protest as an anti-Semitic protest? Or are we going to call a pro-Israel protest as an Islamophobia protest? Like, is that like where we're going with this? I don't think that's the intent, the spirit of this, but I think that's the consequence of it. So the board has some recommendations. I don't know if the board, anyone else wants to add, but based on that, based on that feedback, I think we have some recommendations in receiving the report. Thank you. That was long-ended. I just wanted a lot of feedback, but thank you for indulging me.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you, Mr. Tia, for the feedback. I think, with certainty, we'd be happy to have discussions on formative changes to language and reporting, without a doubt. You know, we would certainly not want to have an omnibus report that rolled in public protests as part of a narrative that's oriented at hate crimes, right? So, you know, clearly I know that the Deputy DePat's received some feedback from the board, so we'll look at it. I do want to acknowledge, though, you know, even some, whether it be the LGBT2S plus committee, community that's been indicated here, you know, the dialogue on what drives it, or the conceptions, it does require some thoughtfulness, but I just don't want to diminish the fact that there are legitimately reported hate crimes behind that, right? People have come to us to report a crime, which I hate to diminish at any point, but I do agree we have to be thoughtful on you know, our language surrounding it. I just hate to turn people away from believing that we might diminish the motivation behind it. So anyways, just a comment more than anything.
If I could, Ahmed, I'm going to come back to you because you have the floor. We had a little bit of a discussion around this, and I think I have a formal motion, and it's just how we deal with it. And the point was made, I think it's a very good one by Ahmed. Some wording, for example, might be characterized as follows, and it's a motion that's been put to me, but I'll speak to that in a second, but reads as follows. That the Peel Police Services Board amend page 10 of the 2023 Annual Hate-Motivated Crime Report to read as follows, and I quote, Chart 5 further demonstrated an 88% increase in reported hate crimes motivated by sexual orientation in 2023. The recent uptick in 2SL GBTQ plus hate crimes can possibly be attributed to a trend that reflects a broader pattern of intolerance and discrimination against marginalized communities. Several factors contributed to the rise, including the enactment of parental rights legislation in various provinces across Canada and in other countries. Additionally, the region of Peel and other communities across the province have seen an increase in parental right protests, but also some isolated anti-2SL GBTQ plus incidents. Misinformation surrounding the 2SLGBTQ plus rights and parental rights may be a contributing factor to this increase. Ahmed, you've articulated it better than I've read it, but I understand the sentiment. Chief, I don't know if that's something that we want to amend the report, take it as a notice of motion, have the team go back and reincorporate the words of it. But I understand the fine point you're making. I think it's a very good one. So Ahmed, why don't you speak to this and how you'd like us to proceed?
I'd like to pass the motion to receive the report with this amendment.
Okay. So Chief, I have that formal amendment before me. Thank you. Any comments or thoughts with regards to my colleagues regarding the words?
Deputy DePat and I spoke. We have no issues with that.
Perfect. Okay, so I will come back and treat that as a form. It's the motion I have on the floor and will be dealt with accordingly, seconded by Mr. Carby. Carrying on with conversations and or speaking to this motion, Mr. Attia, do you have anything?
I just want to reaffirm the chief's feedback and comment. You know, we have to be very careful not to diminish the lived experiences of people in our jurisdiction. And we need to continue to understand why this uptick is happening, and make it a safe place for people to report their hate crimes and their hate incidents. So I agree fully. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Vice Chair Sumita Kohli, please.
Thank you. So just a couple of updates. One thing was, first of all, great presentation by both of you. I also want to mention that I did attend the Countering Hate in Our Community Symposium. And I think it was a phenomenal kickoff, I think, because it was one of the first you had put together. What was amazing to see is that, and you guys had mentioned the government grant you received, there was representation from the agency that gave it, and listening to them speak about the work that's being done in Peel and how it's so instrumental was really comforting to hear. I mean, they were there to take notes. that was the most amazing part of it. And I think what that symposium showed is there was a room filled with organizations that you can see behind the scenes. The work has been done to reach out, engage them, involve them. It has been a process that was very apparent that's coming together with everyone involved. That it's not just from a policing perspective, that everyone is involved from the community that's coming together to do this. So it was a really good symposium. And I think a big shout out to Inspector Fares Ishmael, because his presentation and the work that he's put in, and including this report, it was just, I mean, I think it was almost emotional to watch him when he speaks, because he's so passionate about the work that's being done here. So it was really well done. And this today was a great next step forward. I think the tools that you're putting in, from an online, easy access, easy submission, for hate crime, I think that's a big thing as well, is that, for somebody who maybe is not comfortable walking in, but is still want to share it, and then someone reach out and they can discuss it further, is a great way to also do it. And so you're putting in a lot of tools in place to make it easier for people to be able to share their experience. And I echo what Ahmed and Len also said, is it is a lived experience. It is very personal. It stays with you. I think anybody who's grown up in this, and from a minority, I mean, we've all got our experiences that have lived with us, and for some of us it makes us stronger. For some of us it still holds us back for a very, very long time, and especially for kids who watch parents experience it, I think that's even more traumatic as a child. So I think what you're doing, I'm very proud of being in Peel and part of seeing this organization take leaps forward in this. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I have the motion. If I could, just one other comment I'd like to make, and I think I've expressed this before, but Mr. Attia and the Vice Chair have set it up so beautifully for me. Notwithstanding all the concerns you've raised, the biggest concern I always have when we deal with this file is this. We are officially in Peel now people who the majority have come from somewhere else. Like that Eastern little play that was done, Come From Away. Most of us come from away, like my family. The most perplexing and troubling thing I have about this is, and I'll speak about my cultural community, they want to call us Italo-Canadians. I've always hated the phrase. If you say you're Italo-Canadian, to me it implies you're visiting from Italy and you're going back someday. I'm a Canadian of Italian descent is what I really am, but I don't want to start that whole debate, but I've never understood that. But from people in my cultural community, some of whom have some poor traits and will argue about those people today. And I have to remind them, do you remember we were those people before? And it is the most perplexing thing to me that people that have that lived experience of being the newcomer and the prejudice, we lived it. Shouldn't you be the first to say, no, we're not all bad people. Many of us are good people. You've heard stereotypes about whatever. But then the rest of us prospered. These people are no different. And didn't it bother you when it was said of you? And shouldn't you be the last person? And yet that's very pervasive. I've never understood it, because we had the lived experience that 98% of us, 99 are just hardworking folk like the next crowd that's coming in. You should be the last person that should see it that way. So let me express that one once again on top of the great comments that my colleagues have made. I have the report and the motion before me, and so the recommendation should now read that the information be received as amended, as moved by Mr. Attia and Vice Chair Coley. Any other speakers? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. With that, I believe I can now adjourn our public meeting, and we will go in camera momentarily. So I will thank you all. We have a formal motion of adjournment from Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Carby. We stand adjourned, and we'll take a 5-minute break before going in camera. Thank you all.